Hello, I'm Professor Bordway with MBA Architectural and MBA Educational Horizons. I wanted to talk a little bit about, in this video, what constitutes architectural services and what doesn't. In this profession, it is important to understand that difference to make sure that you're not rendering services without a proper contract and a method of compensation, which are like the two big things you need when you proceed in rendering services. It reminds me of the time when I opened my office a long time ago, and the owners and developers seem to have a sense of you needing work, so they're going to try, some of them will try to take you down the road as far as they can. You have to watch out for that. And one developer called me and said, yeah, why don't you go ahead and generate a set of schematics and we'll let you know if you got the project or not after we look at that. And then we talked a little later after I generated the set of schematics, and he said, well, we decided not to use you. I found out later that they took the schematics and gave it to another architect, and they saved that developer some money so he didn't have to pay for the schematic phase of another architect. I didn't put copyrights on the documents, and I should have. All right. So when people are saying things and doing things, we really need to get to what's really being said and what's really being done and so on. And that's what he was saying, is that I want to take your ideas, give them to another architect in hopes of eliminating a phase that I don't have to pay for. All right. And so in most states, before you render any service, you do need a contract and a method of compensation. Okay. And what's a non-service? A preliminary service. For example, you might get an RFQ, a request for qualification to be on the long list of architects to be considered for a project, and then it might go down to an RFP, request for proposal, and that's when you do the research and put your numbers together and so on. And those are all services that we don't really bill for. They're non-service. Okay. We just finished a project the other day, and the project, it's a matter of a lot merging and a lot of preliminary work that needs to be done, proper zoning and density and so on, establishing BSLs and building setback lines and things of that sort for the project. So we kind of did the preliminary work on what needs to be done for this project, but then that was it. It's like I said, okay, that's it. That's my little preliminary code check and so on. At this point, we need a contract before we, continue on. And I gave them 2 or 3 different contracts. One was just for the preliminary stage, pre-design site analysis for the most part, and then or you had a contract for the other services as well: schematics, design development, construction documents, bidding, construction administration, observation, that type of thing. And so I gave them the option of either or a type of contract. Okay, but I had to understand or know when to stop what constituted a non-service, and then I can't continue on because that would be considered a service if I started working for, on the project and so on. Okay, so we have to kind of watch out for that. Another project comes to mind in the past where I was contracted to do construction administration observation. And as soon as the owner got the construction permit, the call came in and said, Mike, we don't need you at the job site. If we do, we'll give you a call. And I was young, and I believe I just got my license, and I was trying to please everyone. I'm green, I'm a novice, And so I said, okay, that's fine. I'm here at the office if you, have any questions, And I got a call 2 weeks later on that project, and who do you think that was from? That was the inspector. Said, well, since you're architect of record, the architect's name was on the documents, we thought we'd notify you that we had to shut the job down today. I said, well, why is that? Well, what they're building out there is nowhere close to your documents, is what he said. So when the client asked me not to come to the job site, what were they really saying? You know, we want to modify your documents and we don't do it anywhere around, you know, it's like that type of thing. I went out there and I got the project back on schedule and they continued on. I found out they had a history for doing that, you know, so, but anyway, I did hear a kind of a voice in the back of my mind and I should have challenged it, you know. I mean, what I should have said that day was either we modify the contract and eliminate that phase altogether, I'm held harmless from this point on, or I'm allowed to have access to the site and do the things I need to do for the construction administration phase. Okay. So when you're doing services, you do need to make sure that you have the proper contract in force. Okay. And the contract would reflect a number of things. One is a description of services or what phase you're hired for. Got to, you know, spell that out. Also, a description of compensation. What's your fee schedule? I mean, our fee schedule, the way we work it in this office, is that three things I need to start a project is a signed contract, a 30% retainer, and a copy of the grant deed or lease agreement to make sure that it's a real project and, you know, that type of thing. And then we move forward. When I get into design development, that's when my systems consultants come on board. Structural, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, fire suppression, you know, the systems consultants inside the building. Anybody outside the building contracts with the owner, minimizes the architect's liability. Civil engineer, landscape architect, marketing people, soils, you know, everybody outside the building, they can contract with the owner. I mean, I do need to communicate and coordinate with them, but I'm not responsible for their fee, schedule, their quality, accuracy of the documents, and that type of thing. But I do need to make sure that their information is coordinated with ours, you know, that type of thing. And so my consultants are coming on board in the DD phase, design development phase, and so they're asking for retainers as well. Okay. And so I'm going to ask for 40% at this time. So now I'm up to 70%, right? And then when we go to plan check for the first time, I ask for another 20%. That brings me to 90%. The documents are at least 90%. I should be paid 90%, as well as my consultants. Okay. And so I'm asking for 90%. I mean, if I get bidding and CA phases and so on, then pick up the corrections, submit for back check, and we ask for 5% at that time. That'll be 95%. And then a 5% when they get C of O at the end of construction. I get reimbursables during construction, of course, you know, depending on how the contract's laid out. But I get my 5% at the end when they get C of O. So if anything ever happened, the worst I'd be out is probably 5%, you know. I mean, an architect should never really be burned for fees they're owed for services that were rendered, and, you know. I mean, I'm an expert witness on law cases as well. And in court, the judge, I mean, the case was in front of us, and the architect was complaining to the judge about how much money the client owes them. And you could see the frustration on the face of the judge. And the judge said, well, who wrote the contract? You know, the architect said, well, I did. Said, well, get out of my court, you're wasting my time. You know, it's like, boom, you know. So if you're burned, you just kind of deserve to be burned. It's like, so you have to kind of watch out for that. I mean, some architects will bill on a weekly basis, a monthly basis. You know, there's different ways of billing. And if you want a more even cash flow, then, you know, you can take a look at that possibility as well of billing. But in the contract, method of, or the phases you're hired for, method of compensation, method of accommodating additional services, any service or scope change that occurs after the contract is signed is considered an additional service. You know, even though it might be in the basic services, the big five, but, you know, If they only hired you for schematics, say, okay, well, we want to now hire you for the balance of the phases all the way through to construction, then that's additional services, and you modify the contract or amend the contract accordingly. But technically, it's defined as additional services, okay? Because you're adding to the services you've already agreed to, you know. And so, method of additional services, and also a definition of how to terminate the contract is important as well. I think our contract just indicates it could be a letter from the owner or the architect requesting that this contract be terminated, you know, and that type of thing from this date on. And so the architect is paid for services up to that date, as well as reimbursables, you know, and so on for yourself and your consultants as well. Okay. But it's important to understand what constitutes additional services or services, and also additional services as well. You know, sometimes we're asked to do something. I mean, on a project we were working on, I think it was last week, you know, we're not paid for construction administration, but they basically said, well, listen, we found some errors in your drawings. You need to clarify the drawings, resubmit them to the agency. We need you to come out to the job site. And it's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I don't have a contract for this phase, you know. And so basically, it's a matter of communicating to the client. You know, I mean, I didn't guarantee a perfect set of documents, and you know, of course, that's the reason why we have insurance and so on. You know, for errors and omission, you know, that type of thing. But we have to go through and communicate to the client that I cannot do any service in this phase because I was not contracted for this phase. So you might have to hire another architect to do a clarification drawing and then submit it to the agency and go out to the job site and monitor, you know, or coordinate that particular aspect of the construction phase. Or you can hire us and we'll continue on with that project. So it's a matter of understanding what constitutes a service, excuse me, and also when not to render services if you don't have a contract. All right. You know, what is a service? Well, when an architect does any type of additional investigation beyond the preliminary time frame, evaluation, advice, things of that sort, services generating the construction package, drawing, specification, calculations, reports, and the like, you're doing a service, okay? And verifying code requirements and things of that sort, code checks and so on. Excuse me. And then also the any type of bidding phase, of course. You know, any of the 8 phases, you know, would be considered services. Services in those 8 phases. You know, the 8 phases would be what? Pre-design, site analysis, phase 2, phase 1, phase 2, schematics, design development, construction documents, bidding negotiation, construction administration, and it can also be post-contract. After they moved in, what services can I render, you know, as well. And so it's important to understand, you know, when you're being asked to do a service and there's no contract discussed, that could be a problem, okay. And so you don't want to be rendering services without some type of contract. You know, in some states, the authorization to proceed is plenty. It's a verbal, and you're good to go. You know, we don't do anything without a contract. I mean, pro bono is another thing in some states. If it's free, you don't need a contract. You know, but here, I mean, where I am, you know, I do a contract in this firm for everything, even if it's free. You know, today we agreed with so and so that we would not charge any services for. You know, so we're laying it all out in a contract that we both sign, agreeing that it's pro bono, you know, that type of thing. So it's important to understand what's a service, what's not a service, and when to render it, you know, the proper time to render services as well. And you want to make sure that you stay on schedule with your services as well. I mean, if you're lacking approval from the client or direction from the agency in any way, you got to let them know they're holding up the job, you know, because you create a timeline for that history, the history of the project, and the delays, because they, you know, they could come back and start blaming you for all the delays that occurred, you know, and And so when they give you the approvals, and sometimes some clients want it yesterday, you know. So it's a matter of just, I'm talking about the more challenging clients in situations in this video, not so much the nice client. I mean, anybody can get along with the nice clients, you know. I'm talking about the more challenging ones. So anyway, I've been doing these services for over 35 years. These videos, educational videos, and I also do tutoring and teleseminars, consultation, coaching. I have materials. I mean, I help the candidates getting through the ARE exam across the United States, as well as the CSE, California Supplemental exam. I've been doing that for probably close to 35 years. And I also do professional subjects, you know, in-house training as well, online, you know. Sometimes they'll set me up on a 70-inch screen, and, you know, you'll have 10, 15 people in the office, you know, that are attending the online professional seminar I'm doing and such. Okay, and, you know, we'll do a Zoom, you know, question and answer and all that as well. But anyway, so if you have any questions, though, give me a call, and we'll, you know, get through this profession with enjoyment and also less resistance, okay? Because once you know something ahead of time, then it usually takes the surprise out of it, you know. So being prepared is always nice to be, okay? All right, real good. I'll let you go. You take care, and I'll see you next video.